Hey Grace Church, my name's Josh. Welcome to the weekly for the week of March the 6th. Today we're talking about silence and solitude and the spiritual disciplines. Last week we heard from Pastor Scott where we looked at the day in the life of Jesus, and you see Jesus teaching with authority, healing with authority, and in this one day, man, you get so much ministry happening. And in the next verse you read is very early in the morning while it was still dark, Jesus gets up and prays in a desolate place. And so my challenge for us this week was pretty simple, that if we want to experience the life of Jesus, then we can't just learn our way into that. We can't just pray our way into that. But if we want to experience the life of Jesus, we have to adopt the lifestyle of Jesus. And one of the disciplines, one of the habits Jesus walked in was the discipline of silence and solitude. So we define silence and solitude as this. It's an intentional time in the quiet to be alone with ourselves and with God. So we do this on purpose. We get alone and we spend time with ourselves and with God. And I referenced a quote from Richard Foster that said, "Loneliness is inner emptiness, but solitude is inner fulfillment." So there's a difference here. It's not just being alone and being sad necessarily. It's intentionally connecting with God in the lonely, quiet place to meditate on His Word, to think about His truths, and to let that warm your heart on purpose. Now this is not easy. This is not easy because we live in a culture that has distractions everywhere. We're in the middle of chaos all the time. We are busy. We are digitally distracted. There's noise all around us. It is not easy for us to intentionally choose to be alone and to be quiet with God. But the culture that doesn't encourage this is the culture that desperately needs this. Though we have a culture that says this isn't encouraged, it shows us how much we need it and how much God's inviting us into it. Because in our habits, you actually see what's going on in your heart. I try to take a moment to just explain this from a theological perspective, these spiritual disciplines and habits that we walk in. And I did that by talking about what the gospel is and what it does for us. So what the gospel did in the first time we believed it, our cold, dead hearts experienced the power of the gospel. They were regenerated. They were given life. And in that moment, you became what we called positionally holy, or theologically justified before God. But your new heart, though it's positionally holy, it is not yet walking in the habits of personal holiness. And so we see in the life of Jesus these habits that we need to take on in our own life. So though we are positionally holy, it is on us, it's up to us to have the habits that lead to our personal holiness. And that is a journey. That is a day-by-day journey. That's a crock pot, not a microwave. And so there are lots of habits that we talked about specifically. The inwards habits, the outward habits, the habits that are happening out in the world that we can walk in. But the key for us was to say our habits show what's going on in our heart. And what's going on in our heart needs to be turned towards and positioned towards the lifestyle of Jesus is what I'm trying to get into my heart. And the more that gets into my heart, the more that's going to make its way into our habits. And yeah, we made fun of habits. We said there's some habits that aren't very healthy for us. But you start to feel the gravity of it when you realize that your whole life, my whole life, is made up of habits, of what we do day in and day out. And so the question I want to ask you is, do your habits look like the habits of Jesus? Does your lifestyle look like the lifestyle of Jesus? Because as we walk through the book of Mark, we are not just trying to learn about Jesus, we are trying to become like Jesus. And the best way we can do that is by changing our habits. So following Jesus is a journey. As C.S. Lewis says, you go through this day by day. It's funny how day by day nothing changes, but Lewis says, but when you look back and everything's different. That's the Christian journey. That's following Jesus. It feels like day to day, maybe it doesn't change that much, but one day you look back and it's all different. And that's the journey we're going on together. So I want to ask you, engage this with your Connect group or the people around you. What habits do you need to institute in your life right now so that one day you can look back and everything looks different? Maybe answer this in this way. What are the couple of habits? What are the top 3 habits? Because it's probably not just one, but it's a few. And so what are some places where you feel like your habits have regressed to not look like the lifestyle of Jesus? And what are some ways you need to step into some healthy habits so that you can have the discipline that looks like the lifestyle of Jesus. And then lastly, I want to ask, in the season of Lent, you've been doing this for about 10 days. How has it been going as you've been trying to have spiritual discipline in a certain area of your life? Could you share that with the people around you? Have you been successful? Have you felt the tension of that? Have you failed? Can you be vulnerable and share what your process has been like as you're walking in a new spiritual discipline? Well, Grace Church, thank you for tuning into the weekly. We hope that by God's grace, you are transforming into the likeness of Jesus day by day. We look forward to seeing you next week.